Maybe big data has gotten too big. Whether you're a B2B marketer or a consumer brand, your data needs to be viable, relevant, and accessible so that Stirista can help you retain customers, acquire customers, and make it personal.
Welcome to the Marketing Stir podcast by Stirista, probably one of the most entertaining marketing podcasts you're going to put in your ear. I'm Kevin, the producer here at Stirista. The goal of the podcast is to chat with industry leaders and get their take on the current challenges facing the market, and maybe we'll have a little fun along the way. In today's episode, Vitaly Pecherskiy joins Vincent and AJ to chat about his adventures in the ad tech world as COO and co-founder of StackAdapt.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Stirista's The Marketing Stir. I, of course, am your host, Vincent Petrofessa. It is so good to be talking to you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us as always, and thank you for coming up to me. It's conference season, and people are coming up to me and loving it. They're like, wait a minute, I listen to you all the time. Is AJ really that funny in real life? I'm like, he is not. It is a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's scripted. I'm usually writing the script. But before we start, let's talk about Stirista for just a moment. B2B marketing company, marketing technology, B2B data, B2C data. We help companies utilize that data through our ESP. We help with a variety of different solutions. Email me, vincent@stirista.com. I'm here to help. And boy, are you using that email address. I'm getting a lot of emails, not always for what I put it out there for, but thank you for using it. And let's get to that person I was referring to, ladies and gentlemen. He is funny in real life. He's just quiet about it. My co-host, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. AJ Gupta. What's going on, AJ?
Hey, Vincent. I was not going to go in the humor channel here, but I think everybody knows I'm a naturally funny person, so it should be no surprise to our viewers.
It is no surprise. They ask it all the time. But ladies and gentlemen, we have an amazing guest from an awesome company that I want you, the listeners, to learn, StackAdapt. Have you heard of them? Well, you will during this podcast. They're an awesome organization. We have the co-founder, the COO, Vitaly Pecherskiy. What's going on, Vitaly?
Thanks for having me, guys. Really excited to spend the next little while chatting.
Vitaly, let's get right into it. Talk to us about StackAdapt. Tell the audience what it is and your role within the organization.
Yeah, so StackAdapt, what you said is exactly right. So I was one of the co-founders of the company. We started just over 9 years ago. So myself, I studied finance in university. And when I graduated, I was actively looking for a job in investment banking. And somehow I ended up in, I think it was 8-person ad tech startup that did Facebook advertising through their ads API. And that was entirely random. And somehow I got sucked into the ad tech technology world and sort of never left. But for me, I just always find it absolutely fascinating. Just seeing how the whole commerce across the internet functions, and advertising is just such a great view into the way the internet operates. And so when we started the company, for us, we saw firsthand just the obvious challenges within programmatic advertising industry, that a lot of software that was built on the market was not following a lot of the fundamental principles of what I think made a lot of software really successful in other areas of the market. And to us, importantly, that was great user experience. So we've always wanted to build a very intuitive, fast product. We always wanted to focus on being a solution that it's not really just a tool where you can essentially decide what you want to do and you operationalize it. For us, we always wanted to think of how can we impact the business of our customers, and advertising just happens to be a channel where we start. And the third one is just automation. Automation and AI, we've talked about this for, well, pretty much since the beginning, 9 years ago. And it is just incredible how much relevant this topic has become every year. And in 2023, it feels that, okay, 9 years later, we're finally at the time when everybody has interacted with AI tools. And sort of what we do, in my view, is a lot more understood by just an average marketer. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, definitely very cool. And, we'll get to the reasoning behind starting StackAdapt in a moment, but people love this question. Like, how'd you get started just in marketing in general?
So yeah, like I said, my very first job in digital advertising was random because to get that first job out of university, I went into people's offices, literally knocked on the door, just went in and just, could I talk to somebody who's from HR department? I would hand out my resumes in elevators. And that was like when I moved to Toronto. So, and surprisingly, that strategy worked really well. I had a job in 3 weeks, and I saw a job posting online, went in, said, can I talk to the CEO? And sort of 2 days later, I had the job. Yeah, so I sort of took an approach of just letting the universe kind of guide me. And so far, it's brought me to interesting places. But I think I was not picky at that time. I just really needed to get a job, my first job out of school. And it just happens to be in an area that blew up in a big way. And I just, was lucky enough that I was fairly early on in the evolution of the technology landscape, and it opened up so many new opportunities for myself. So you got to have a bit of luck with anything. You can manufacture a luck through hard work, but there is a bit of luck that you need to just believe that will come your way all throughout your journey.
Tell us a little bit about the name StackAdapt.
Oh, so StackAdapt is as a name. This was first proposed by my co-founder Yang. He's our CTO, and he's I would say he's an idea machine. So he proposed that name. And the very first logo was literally he typed it. It was just a font. I think it was like not Roboto, but I think Railway or something like that. And he just underscored ad. That was our first logo for the first 3 years of our existence, because we were very much bootstrappers, and our first logo was just a font. And then we can afford making a proper logo after.
And can I relate it to that? When you were first building and growing the business, what were some of the challenges that you had not expected?
So many challenges. All things considered, zoomed out, I think we had a pretty successful run at it. Grown to a team of more than 1,000 people in 9 years, have people in 10 countries. I think we've built up a pretty good brand, but zoomed in. Every year we had so many challenges, and I think in the beginning the biggest challenge is the fact that we had no credibility. It was, for all intents and purposes, our very first company that we tried to start that gained any material traction. So earning that credibility with investors, with people that we try to hire, that's really difficult. Obviously, all of that sort of naturally went away by virtue of building a successful business. But in the beginning, we started the company when I was in my mid-20s. When investors, for example, spoke to us, in general, the response was, well, why you? There's a lot more people with a lot more experience. Why is this team? And in all honesty, if I look back, from the outside looking in, it's tough to know sort of what will make a company successful, right? Inside, okay, we know the industry inside out. We know what customer wants, and we have a great relationship between co-founders. That's something it's really hard to measure from somebody from the outside, and we're just committed for this. Basically, failure is not an option. We want to do this until we make it work. And that's also something that's really hard for somebody outside looking in to know your motivations. So between us, we knew that we want to build this into a big company, but for everybody outside, it was unproven yet. So that's to me one of the big challenges that we faced in the beginning. What about you, AJ? Is that at all relevant to what you dealt with in the beginning?
Yeah, so much like you guys, we were also bootstrapped. So a lot of and I'd never really, just a couple of years out of grad school. So a lot of it was just learning, and also I guess it was good I didn't have children and stuff, so I was able to take more risks at that point, and just learned how to build a profitable company without having to take too much funding early on, which helped us later down the road when we did need to raise more substantial rounds.
Do you think average tolerance for risk goes up with age or down? Do you think it would be harder if you had kids when you started?
I think if I had to do it again now with children and where I'm in life, it would be much tougher. So I think I did it at a good time where I was more adventurous than I would be today. Just the thought of starting again with and working 16-hour, 17-hour days.
I think you need to also have that level of naivete and optimism, and maybe
exactly, yeah.
And I definitely had a lot of that. I think you have to be in some ways naive and optimistic. And looking back, I thought would be where we are way sooner. And if you didn't believe that, maybe it would not start it, right? You have to believe it's possible. Otherwise, I think that all starts with truly believing that it's possible.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think one of the things I always tell my salespeople is oftentimes they'll say, hey, we don't know as many people as you do. And I think a lot of them don't realize I literally did not know anyone in the industry when I started the company. It was just purely from cold outreaches and going to conferences and networking. So that's where I think that optimism comes into play. Looking back, I was like, wow, really took a deep dive without actually having any contacts in the industry.
Yeah. It's important to maintain that optimism too, which is, after many, many years, you sort of have to put a lot of things aside and that didn't work and still maintain that level of optimism, because without it, it's just hard to carry on.
Yeah.
And I could vouch for AJ when he did not really know anyone back in, is it 13, 14 years ago, 15? Now people know him, and it's great. And it was all that hard work. I love when we get two co-founders, founders of emerging companies on, and the ideas start flowing. This is great, gentlemen. Vitaly, staying on you and your, fellow founders there, tell us how you guys got the idea for StackAdapt. Was it born out of like sheer ingenuity, or were each of you facing this problem in the industry that you were trying to solve?
Yeah, so it started with a fairly obvious, what I mentioned earlier, sort of principles that we saw that not many other companies sort of think about it. So those principles, they remained constant in these 9+ years. But there's so much that has changed. And it's a lot of the times looking back, it just, if you look at the company now, it sort of feels as if we sort of fully engineer it the way that it operates now, but it's not true, because a lot of these sort of new discoveries or new paths that we took as a company, they were a byproduct of us both inventing things, responding to market, responding to unexpected events. When we started the company, we focused specifically on native advertising as just a clear way for us to get in the market. I don't think at that point we even ever thought about the fact that there's going to be such channels such as connected TV, for example. Nobody imagined that we could run a fully virtual company, 1,000 people without any offices. That would be almost, it would be a shocking thing to hear back then, to me at least. And sort of our ability to take these, to take advantage of new opportunities. It sort of allowed us to get to where we are now, but so much of it is so much bigger and so much more complex than I imagined in the beginning. But I think the core operating principles of the value of our companies, that stayed the same. And it's amazing. So I have a document that I pulled up that we wrote in 2017. So more than 6.5 years ago. And I'm reading it and I'm like, we're the same company. Like, we still think the same way. We still have the same values. And that is cool. Obviously, what we do has changed, the DNA of our company has stayed the same, and there's something cool about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so you're a COO there. You're also responsible for growth and primarily focused on growth. So what advice do you have for marketers, for other C-level executives on how to achieve that growth?
Yeah, I think for me, what has always been a helpful way to think about my role in the company is sort of separate myself from maybe functional leadership, where there's some teams that directly report to me, versus understanding that my job is much bigger than that. My job is to make the company successful, right? And that sort of forces me naturally to interact with a lot more teams that don't directly report to me. But at the end of the day, the company is just a collective of people that comes together to solve problems. So as an executive, or as sort of at a leadership level, you need to be really great at connecting dots across the organization. And focusing on marketing specifically, in my view, the big opportunity is really peeling back sort of where marketing maybe ends and some other functions within the company begin. So at the end of the day, marketers are responsible for impacting customer growth or customer retention. That needs to be sort of brought back almost to the conversation with CFO. If a marketer can have a conversation with a CFO and really understand how their work impacts the work of the CFO, in my view, that is a very strong marketing team, because they're operating around fundamentals for what it takes to operate a company. With marketing, you inherently dealing with a lot of software metrics or like proxy metrics. You need to rely on sometimes things that maybe don't directly tie to, profit and loss for your company. Sometimes you do have to think about in the context of impressions and reach and clicks and how many people visited. But it needs to be just one data point. I think it just needs to be one of the data points through which you look at the impact of a marketing function on a business. And so the closer you can push it back to, financial planning and analysis team, the financial level of conversations, the more effective marketing would be, in my view.
Are there things that you miss today that you used to do in the early days that you're not able to do because of lack of time?
Lots of things, because I'm very passionate about business, and having gone from essentially being involved in every single operation every single day. At some point, believe it or not, like I was doing some design work for our company. I'm really glad that is not the case. Finance was under. I ran finance for the first I think year and a half. I'm really glad that's not the case anymore. So, but at the same time, so I'm sort of coming from as an entrepreneur, a lot of times you derive pleasure from sort of understanding how it all kind of comes together into a final product. So the nature of that is that you have to look for those minute details around how, the devil is in detail around a lot of the times. So that's something that's really hard to do when there's just the company is so big and there's so much happening. So I just have to use more of approach where, maybe I focus on one team, for example, for a month, then I move on to the next one and the next one. But I do like to be sort of in the trenches. I like rolling up my sleeves and actually being actively in the business, because it helps me understand how the company operates and contribute that way. I love meeting with customers, which I don't unfortunately spend as much time anymore. That's an area that I always liked.
And do you see yourself, obviously, as a DSP, but is there a bigger, more overarching theme that StackAdapt identifies itself with?
So demand-side platform, we don't explicitly call ourselves that. We don't like calling ourselves that because it sort of pigeonholes us in thinking that we're essentially like a switchboard for audience inventory. We call ourselves demand-side platform because we in the context of G2 because we're ranked number one. So we just proudly say we're ranked number one in demand side platform. But internally, we really think of ourselves as just a technology company whose task is to help our customers grow. And sort of that forces us to think bigger than a demand side platform. And a lot of decisions that we make on for example, product end could be perceived as surprising if you think of, StackAdapt is a DSP, and they're like, whoa, why are they going and building this thing? But if you just accept that we're a platform whose purpose is essentially enabling growth of our clients, then you can very logically extrapolate why certain product decisions were made. I think it gives us a lot more creativity to with respect to where we want to innovate and what we want to build. If we don't just put a label on us and say like, we're the demand side platform, we have to do it in a certain way that what everybody else has done before us. We really try to just be the best version of StackAdapt. Sometimes that means making maybe unconventional decisions around what we want to build or directions we want to pursue, but rules are meant to be broken. So we just try to listen a lot to our customers, listen to our team, and just stay focused on what made us strong so far.
And Vitaly, talk to us about, I love that and kind of not viewing yourselves as one way, constantly innovating. What's coming up in 2024 for StackAdapt? Anything new? Any new announcements, products?
So without risking jumping the gun and revealing too much, I will just say that our R&D team has seen no slowdown, if only acceleration in the way we're ramping up our engineering, data science, product teams. And so the roadmap this year was an order of magnitude more ambitious than any year that we've seen before. And I think we want that trend to only accelerate. So I would say 2024, I'm expecting some pretty bold moves and with respect to the product. And so, I hope you'll see it in the news. But generally, it's, a lot of areas, so maybe that would fit into more maybe unexpected areas if you were to think of us as a DSP. If you think of us as just StackAdapt, maybe you'll be like, oh, makes total sense. So we'll see. We'll see what kind of response people will have.
Nice. Yeah, see, AJ, I was hoping for a Marketing Stir exclusive product drop, but Vitaly's leaving us on the edge of our seat here. So stay tuned for another episode. Stay tuned for the news from StackAdapt. You got to go out and follow the company. So there's a question I have, because interesting. I know your backstory, and of course, knowing AJ for a long time, a lot of parallels between Stirista, the founders. Really, you and AJ, right? Immigrated here to Canada, to the US. What's your experience doing that and in finding a company in those countries with your experience? Would love to understand like the advantages of that, disadvantages. What's your perspective on that, Vitaly?
Well, I think undeniable. It's Canada, United States is one of the best places in the world to be an entrepreneur. And to your point, I didn't really have a lot of experience. And that's what I think maybe is different, something that's really differentiated in the United States and Canada is that you can be successful without having tremendous experience or tremendous connections. You can sort of become successful and manufacture that luck through hard work, right? And that's what makes this place so unique. And would I be as successful if I was to try to build it in some other country? I don't know. I think there's some parts about Vitaly Pecherskiy that helped me become successful, but being part of the system that is so conducive to innovation and entrepreneurship has played a tremendous role, which will be really hard to separate from my success, within my success.
One of the questions we like to ask all of our guests, and this is a fun one, is I'm sure you get a lot of LinkedIn messages that are unsolicited. In fact, most of them probably are. But would love to know what's one that gets your attention, gets you to respond, and what's one that really annoys you?
I would not say there are any messages that annoy me. I just accept that there is just not enough hours in a day to respond to everybody. But the ones that, and those are really infrequent, and those I almost always respond to, and is just when people really put some thought into it. I think when people reach out to me and say, "Oh, can I take you out for coffee to pick your brain about the industry?" I'm just, send me a list of questions and I'll try to respond. I just don't have time for coffee. It's talking about industry. But if it's something that's truly insightful, and if somebody clearly has gone out, for example, read my blog and thinks, "Oh, I have a question about what you've written," and it's actually intelligent, real question, not a bait for me but it's an actually intelligent question. I always try to respond to that because those are rare, and I think those people deserve to hear back. So, and I try to respond to everybody who makes a thoughtful reach out. If it's a student looking for a co-op job, even if it's a one sentence response, I'll respond to them.
In that case, I have to ask you, this is more of a personal question, since you seem so relaxed and chill. What are some of the things you do in personal life that makes you not annoyed at all these unsolicited messages? What are your hobbies and interests?
Well, I'm surprised and humbled that you think I'm relaxed and chill.
At least on this podcast.
Yeah, you should have seen me in my younger days. That's what he's trying to say, yeah.
I certainly try to keep it positive, but relax and chill is maybe sometimes. So this summer I did Olympic triathlon, so I trained a lot for that, and now I'm back to heaving up on my jiu-jitsu training. So that's keeping me pretty busy, and aside from that, just family. Mm-hmm. I've been studying Mandarin for a few years, but this year I just that it has to take the back seat because it's just not enough hours in a day. That's the name of the game. Unfortunately, right now, as much as I would love to pursue so many new directions and do so many things, it's just impossible given the time constraint.
An Olympic triathlon and jiu-jitsu does not sound chill. So, I don't know. This is not much chill stuff that Vitaly's doing there. But Vitaly, before we break, and thank you so much for your time, anything you want to leave people with, a closing thought, anything you've been looking at lately, a technology, a book, anything you want to leave our listeners with, the floor is yours.
For me, and like everybody else, probably the topic of AI is top of mind. So that's an area that we actively really heaving up on to bring some new paradigms into what people think of how AI can be used in advertising/marketing technology. So whoever is keen to speak about that, my LinkedIn is always open for solicited messages.
That's awesome. Thank you, Vitaly, for spending some time with us. Check out StackAdapt, ladies and gentlemen. Check out Vitaly. That's Vitaly Pecherskiy, co-founder, COO of StackAdapt. I'm Vincent Petrofessa. That's Mr. AJ Gupta. This has been another episode of The Marketing Stir. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Stir podcast from Stirista. Please like, rate, and subscribe. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, please email us at themarketingstir@stirista.com. And thanks for listening.